Okay, so 3. We are now live on YouTube. Hello, YouTube, and welcome to another week of recordings from the Talk Show for Talkers. It's good to be back, as always.
Good to see you, YouTubers, particularly since you're signing into the Talk Show for Talkers.
That's right. Well, they show good sense, of course.
Yes, of course.
Because they are coming back to see the...
Let's crack on with recording the show, guys, shall we?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
Sorry. I have a phone call at 4:30.
Oh, yeah, right. Let's get going somewhere.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters, listeners and friends. You're very welcome to the Talk Show for Talkers on irishtalkers.com. Our email address is info@irishtalkers.com. You can also find us on Facebook as the Talk Show for Talkers. We look forward to whatever comments you wish to send on to us. Any questions we will try to answer. Indeed, we rely on your feedback to improve the quality of this show. You can also listen to previous shows on our website, irishtalkers.com. And we also publish the Public Speaking Weekly. This is a roundup of links from the internet. It's all about Toastmasters, public speaking, how to build confidence, how to improve your leadership skills. So look out for the newspaper link on our website. My name is Ted Malamphy, and I'm joined again this week by the passionate, prolific, persuasive Paul O'Mahony.
Thank you for coming, listeners. It's a pleasure to have your company again this week.
And thank you, Paul. Well done. And we also have the multi-talented, I nearly said mindless, I should say mindful, motivating, mercurial even, Moira O'Brien.
Thank you, Ted. We now... What? You can't hear me? Now you're thoroughly confusing me, Ted, because I am on mic. Thank you, Ted. The tantalizing, totally top class Ted Malamphy. Now, I had to think a little bit there because once again I hadn't pre-prepared that little speech. But I'm glad that you're here to listen to this week's Talk Show for Talkers, which I'm looking forward to. Ted, what do we have in store in this week's show?
And thank you, Maura, for that lovely introduction to Ted, particularly that bit where the word class was introduced. I like it. Well, Maura, what we have this week, we have, well, in part 2, which we'll be listening to tomorrow, we have another wonderful guest, another rising star in Toastmasters, in Division A of Toastmasters in District 71. We will also have Paul O'Mahony in this particular part to give us his word of the week. I will have a thought for the week. And we will have, maybe you'll have something that you might like to give us, Maura. I know that Paul is going to be giving us a nice piece on a Division Hall of Fame. And I'm assuming that's Division A Hall of Fame. So that should be nice. And Maura, you are going to give us a piece on the importance of language.
Absolutely, Ted. It's something which I am passionate about.
And it's something that's very relevant to Toastmasters.
Absolutely.
The type of language, the quality of language, the rhetorical devices, which you are well up in.
Well, we're not going to talk too much about rhetorical devices today, but we might talk about a few other things which are around that subject.
Yes, well, once you're talking about language, you're going to be incorporating some rhetorical devices. We've probably used some already. So for my thought of the week, since we're in the flavour and the favour of Christmas time, and we're not going to start using that horrid C word today, but I'm going to use the beautiful C word of Christmas, and I'm going to shine a little bit of light. So you'll never know how much light you have within until you try to shine it for others. You'll never know how much light you have within until you try to shine it for others. Thoughts, Maura and Paul?
Yes, it's a good little quotation. I can't. I'm sort of lost for words, Ted, because it's simple, but
Profound.
yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah, profound. Yeah, because my interpretation of it really is that if you're a humble person, you deflect the light away from yourself and onto the shoulders of others more deserving.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
What are
It's
Paul's thoughts?
Paul is muted again.
My thoughts are around the challenge that is contained within the quotation. If I could paraphrase the quotation, it is that you'll never know how generous you really are until you try to be generous to somebody else. And that's an interesting challenge, because everybody goes around saying, generosity is a good thing and all that. And it's become, one of these modern cliches among certain classes of people. We're all meant to be believers in generosity. You sort of wouldn't find yourself very popular if you went around saying, I think generosity is a bad thing. But the idea that you're really only going to find out how generous you are until you experience the challenge of being generous to somebody else. I find that quite a profound thought, to treat it as a challenge. Because how much goodness have you got within yourself that is available to be used for the service of others? Well, I can tell you that if your mental health is stressed and you're feeling very, very low and you're down, you're almost certainly not going to feel any generosity towards anybody else, because you're not loving yourself enough. And, we could get into what some people would call psychobabble here if we went down the road of exploring that. But in short, Ted, I find it a quotation that is worth ruminating on.
Well, that's an incredible answer to give, particularly since you brought in that subject of generosity and altruism, because for the very reason we saw an incredible generous act last week in this country, and I suppose as Irish people we're known for our generosity. But do you know that on the Late Late Toy Show last Friday night, there was an appeal went out from a child to look after children this year who have nothing. And in the 2 hours, there was €6.5 million generated for kids in this country, particularly refugees, people who haven't got their own roofs over their heads. And I thought that was absolutely magnificent. And it ties in beautifully with what you just said.
Yes, I think that program you're talking about, the Late Late Toy Show, was a real credit to Ireland.
Mm.
And I saw some of it. I fell asleep during it, I have to admit, because I was tired. But one of the kids managed to get himself an invitation, I think, to go on the International Space Station.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And Commander, what's his name, managed to get in on the Generosity, that famous commander who recorded from the International Space Station and recorded a #1 hit, I think, or something.
That's right, yeah.
Is it?
That's right, yeah. I know it was beautiful, actually. And, you know, the biggest child of all, and we have to give kudos here as well, Ryan Tubridy, the person who presents that particular show every year. I regard him as the biggest child of all, but the man has a huge heart.
Yeah. Somebody made a very interesting comment that the reason why the Irish populace have been so generous is because we've all been sitting at home not spending any money. So our bank balances have gone up dramatically, and now we can afford to give.
Yes, and as well as that, as Paul mentioned there, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling down, because that's certainly an emotion that everybody all over the world are feeling at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to use the C word, I'm going to stay on Christmas, but you all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, indeed. Ted, do you have a quotation? We've had the quotation, haven't we? I really have to pay attention, don't I?
Or when I mentioned
this
you as being mindless instead of mindful, you're after taking the task.
Well, no, it's the multitasking bit, Ted. But Paul, do you have a word of the week for us, or are you sitting there inert?
Before I say anything about the word of the week, I wish you to be inert. I wish you to be inert. I wish you to be immobile. I wish you to stop talking. I wish you to leave space. And I wish you to be a non-active gas.
Oh, I like it.
Inert, listeners. Now, you've got to be careful if you're learning English that you don't mix it up with in earth or to earth a plug. It's INERT, inert. And it means something that is not moving. So you can talk about an economy that is inert, going nowhere, not expanding. You can talk about a body that is inert, lying there inert, and it's a synonym for dead. Something that doesn't move. You could use it also if you were commenting upon somebody's behavior. The person remained inert throughout that experience. And that's a way of saying they look like living dead, really. What it is. Now, I'm going to ask my two companions, listeners, what century they think this word entered the English language. They never got it right. I can't remember how many weeks it is since Ted or Moira got one of these questions ever right. So, Ted, let me go with you. When was the word inert?
I'd say it goes back. I'd say it goes back to the 14th century.
Oh, very good guess, Ted.
Wrong.
Wrong.
Definitely wrong. I think it's more modern than that. I think it's probably around about 1640.
Really, Moira?
You're wrong too, Moira.
She's not wrong.
Isn't she?
In fact, I have a suspicion.
She looked it up.
System, as I saw. Now, listeners, far be it from me to cast aspersions on any Toastmaster. That would be disrespectful, and it would be to imply a lack of integrity. So I will not. But I'd like to ask Maura which day of the week it entered the English language.
I was going to ask her that too, actually.
No, that I don't know. I can't. All I can tell you is it was sometime during that year. But I have no. I was just thinking Shakespearean, probably, and then I'm not terribly good on years and dates. And I thought, well, middle of the century, 1640. That sounds about right. Yeah.
Died, but we won't go there. But actually, it was all to do with this is a theory I have, with the fact that the king had been beheaded and the body was lying inert, and that was a mispronunciation by one of the people who was there, who said his body is lying inert, and he was Irish, you see. So it wasn't in earth, it was in earth, and Anyway, there's the word, listeners. It's not a common word. You'll stand out from the crowd if you, when you're doing evaluations, you talk about the speaker's inert appearance as they were glued to the spot. But it's a short word, and it will suggest that you have quite a good English vocabulary, inert. So there we are.
So are you
What,
seriously
is it the opposite of
suggesting?
alert?
Are you seriously suggesting that it was invented because? No, I can't believe that. That's far too good. Tell me the original origin of the word.
There was a soldier called John Smith, and he had just cut off the head of Charles. And anyway,
no,
look,
no, I can't believe that. It's just not. It's too fantastical to be
can't
true.
believe it. It's part of my humorous speech for the next year's contest.
Right. Well, let's make this section inert then, and move on rapidly to tomorrow's segment, when we'll be having an interview with the winner of the Division A in District 71 humorous speech contest. We'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not with it today at all, and I was concentrating on other things. And Ted, when you asked me to comment on the quote, I didn't even know what the quote was. I had to look it up again.
That was brilliant.
If I've got my head down, Ted, like this, I'm doing things in the background. So.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, brilliant.
Taking out Google so she wouldn't be caught out.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah,
Paul,
I didn't. That was pure coincidence. If I actually got the year right, it would be total coincidence.
Hey, you're not.
Was it 1640, Paul?
Jeez, are you saying you didn't cheat?
No, good God, no.
Was it 1640, Paul?
1647, I think.
Jeez, that's brilliant, Moira.
So there, I didn't get it right. If I'd cheated, I would have said 1647.
Well, you did right. 1640 is a perfectly good example because it wouldn't have got into the dictionary until it had been spoken by a few people.
Well, that's true. But remember that if you're going to mention a number and be believable, this is something applicable to all Toastmasters, you should always use an accurate number. So if I said that 5,425,641 people have listened to this podcast, you're going to believe me because it's a specific number. If I said 640 odd thousand, you'd say, oh, well, she's just guessing.
Mm-hmm.
You see the difference?
So when you're more specific, yeah.
Yeah. So
well, I think it's on whether they know.
And Maury, what you must remember is that you completely threw Paul out of his inertness insofar as he said that we never ever came close to getting it right. So hello, Toastman.
Yes.
You've just improved by 150 years.
Okay. Now we're skipping over section 2 because we already have it in the bag.
Yeah, that's good.
And we're going straight into Paul's.
Oh, brilliant.
And I'll do the intro, the outro. Off air. We won't bother now.
That's good. No, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you listen to the interview, Paul?
No. I'd like to.
You can listen to it because I sent it on to you. Just don't listen to the first 4 minutes, 50 seconds because there's nothing on it.
That was what threw me because I wanted to. I tried to listen to it on my iPhone, and it was too difficult to get it to push.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Right.
So it would have been easy enough on my laptop.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Are we ready, folks? Let's go for it. Get this back live again. Otherwise, I can't. That's it. Welcome back, Toastmasters, to section 3 of this week's Talk Show for Talkers. Let me remind you of our email address. It's info@irishtalkers.com. And our website, of course, is irishtalkers.com. And you can find us on Facebook as the Talk Show for Talkers. I now would like to introduce Paul Imani, who's going to be talking about something which, in my recollection of 6.5 years in Toastmasters, I've never come across before. So, Paul, enlighten us.
Listeners, a couple of days ago, Moira O'Brien made a mistake. She made an assumption that today I was going to talk about Division A, which is the division for which I have responsibility this year. And I'm not. I'm going to talk about a Division Hall of Fame without any reference at all to the clubs in Cork. Now, recently, District 71 had an award ceremony at which the immediate past president, past district director, John Cox, made many awards. We had a division council meeting last night in Division A. And prior to the division council, I have been thinking about how to celebrate achievements in Toastmasters in a way that might have a beneficial effect, how to positively have an effect on people. And I thought, why wouldn't it be possible for a division to have a Hall of Fame of its own? Now, if you were division director, just imagine, can you imagine yourself to be a division director? Forget about all the other people, just yourself, and you're sitting at home in your armchair, you're sipping a cup of coffee or a glass of champagne, however you'd like to do it, and you're thinking, I'm going to set up a Hall of Fame. Where would you start? First of all, what kind of awards would you have? Would you have it for the best dressed Toastmaster in the division? Would you have it for the Toastmaster with the best polished shoes in the division? Would you have it the Toastmaster with the best haircut in the division? No, you'd be unlikely to do that. You'd probably get a lot of it. You'd probably get more attraction. But suppose you wanted to do it in a way that recognized excellence and service. What awards would you give? Let's leave out, Toastmaster of the Year. I'm talking about 5 months into the year. 5 months into the year began in July. What would you give an award for? Now, I'm going to quickly brainstorm Moira and Ted, and I'm going to ask them to just give me an award that they think, not who would get it, but what would you give an award for, Ted Malanphy? Quickly. Yes, I forgot to tell Ted to unmute himself, so I'll go straight across to Moira to see if I can get a suggestion from Moira. An award.
My suggestion would be for the Toastmaster who has made the most spectacular progress during...
Brilliant idea, brilliant. Impossible to measure, but a brilliant idea. Let's say...
I'd have a way of measuring it, Paul. The first Toastmaster of the year to get a triple crown.
Now that's triple crown. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So people who get triple crowns would be in the Hall of Fame. Great idea. Any other ones? These are ones now, think about this from the point of view of a division director who is not an employee, who doesn't have a stack of people to delegate this to, and has to actually find some data on which to make the judgment. Moira, what would you come up with?
Well, I can see, Paul, that you don't have enough ideas from the Division Council yourself, and you're using us to give you all the best ideas.
I have.
No, I'm kidding you. Of course, a Toastmaster of the Year, you have to have some sort of guide for it. And the only way you could do that is to ask for nominations from clubs to put forward their person and maybe then to interview them.
Dreadful idea.
The Toastmaster who invites guests, and whichever one of the Toastmasters in the club has those guests converted to members.
So the best inviter.
Yeah.
That's a great suggestion, Ted.
Mm-hmm.
None of the 500 people I've consulted have gone for that one. So that's a superb addition. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, the obvious ones. Let us go down, right? Okay. The club with the most distinguished club points so far this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. No?
Logical.
A good one?
Logical. Yeah.
Club with the most education awards this year.
Yep.
Club with the most members registered on Pathways.
Yeah, that's a good one, yeah.
Yes.
The let me see. Yes, the club with the greatest attendance at meetings during the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good.
The humorous speech champion, the table topic speech champion, and By the way, we have runners up in all these things as well. So, okay, club with the most trained officers.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Are these good? Are they? Are they pretty good?
They are
Yes.
good, actually.
Yeah.
Paul,
Yeah.
just one question there with regards the club with the most people registered for pathways. Is that particular job, is that a responsibility of the VP membership?
Yes, it is
Well, I
actually.
think that's what we should aim at. That's specifically a task that the vice president for membership should be on. And as soon as a guest is converted into a member, then the VPM should be making sure that person knows how to select whatever path he wants to take or she wants and get it going straight away.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole because let's stick with the Hall of Fame. But
Okay,
I
right,
agree.
sorry.
Yeah.
thing. So just some other ones that I've been thinking about, guys. There's a question about the overall club, the champion club so far this year in 5. Now that requires a number of criteria.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't just be, so there have to be some objective criteria so that you can explain to a club, look, you got it because.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then there's an issue which I don't have attendance data for the clubs, but the great thing is that the area directors have gone to the clubs making club visits. So all I have to do is go through all the area reports and see how many people turned up at that meeting.
Yeah, or the agendas even for the club meetings.
The area director is required to report on the number of people who were at the meeting, and I've got a load of reports, so I can dig out of that. There was another one that I was thinking of, Ted. I wonder what you think of this. We won't do this now because there is going to be a Division A Hall of Fame, by the way.
And is this for the end of the year or the middle of the year?
This is coming out in the next edition, in the next issue of Diva Edition, which
so
is,
it's half yearly. So,
it's 5 months in. I imagine
okay.
we'll probably do it twice more in the year.
Oh, I see, right.
But things like this, halls of fame and league tables. You see, it would be possible to put together a league table for all the clubs. And you give X number of points for clubs that gain members, Y number of points and you bring them all together. And you say, here's the league table, here's how we decided it, and here's the leading club. And, maybe the second club will say, hey, we're going to beat them.
Yeah, it creates a bit of competitiveness, yeah.
Got a strong support from the area directors for this idea. I thought it would be more controversial than it was, but there was a general nod of being in favor of such a thing. So I have got in a piece of paper here, Ted, I think it's 14 different categories. I've got a category which I'm calling at present membership champion, and that is probably for the club that gains the most new members.
Yeah, that'll be brilliant.
So far in the year.
Excellent.
I'm also going to have one for the champion corporate club.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite interesting to do that because I wonder what criteria somebody would use to decide, corporate clubs. What would you use? One of them I was thinking about was that we had 25% of the competitors at our division contest this year were from corporate clubs.
I thought that was brilliant.
Yes.
Mm.
So if a corporate club, like for sake of argument, had the highest number of contestants in the division final, they ought to surely be given some encouragement, because the idea of the league table is to encourage clubs. So there we are, guys. Would you give us a nod of approval as an idea?
Oh, I think it's a very good idea. It would be like something like the GAA Championship or the Premiership. You know, I think it's a good idea, Paul. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent idea.
Mhm.
I think
Great.
it has a lot of merit. The District Hall of Fame is elitist, if you like, because it's really only picking out the best out of 205 clubs.
And it's not
which
even picking them out. It's not even picking them out of the clubs, Mara. It's whittled down again to the officers who.
Well, yeah,
are part
it's
of the
very
district
few.
leadership
Yeah,
team.
very few people are going to be able to qualify for one of those awards. At division level, it's much fairer.
Mm.
I beg to differ here because there's a woman I used to know in Cork. I can't remember her name now, but she was a member in a club, and you know she did things during the year, and
Yeah. You're right. That would be the Toastmaster of the year.
got an award this year. I don't know what was her name. She was on the talk show for talkers for about 5 or 6.
Sharon O'Neill.
No. The person who was last recognised. God, you've got a worse memory than me.
Oh, sorry, that's Crystal Long, is it? Crystal.
What a-
I thought you were
He's
District
talking
Award.
about me. He's having a
Oh, he's talking about MOB.
dig
Oh, yeah.
because I got an award. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
come on, folks, come on.
Oh, sorry about
Listen, before I get too embarrassed, we'll better call this episode to a finish. And
the whole of coming. And if any division director or any area director, you see these categories, we could have areas could have their Hall of Fame as well.
they could indeed.
True.
They could indeed. Let's bring this one to a close because we've, I think, done it to death. And I hope that that's going to encourage other divisions to have theirs. I have actually seen, I have to admit, in Division A in District 91, did have a short Hall of Fame section in their humorous speech and table topics contest. So they did a bit of it.
Nice idea. It's
They
a good
did.
idea. It's a
So we'll
good
see you
idea,
again
actually.
tomorrow when I will be talking about the importance of language. So we'll see you then. Bye for now. Stop. Now, Paul, I've hit upon an issue, and I'm not sure what the cause of it is. When I am speaking, you are muted. I've never come across this before.
Mara, he's not muted. He moves back from
No.
microphone.
When I'm speaking, I cannot hear him.
Well,
When
let
you're
you speak now and let
when
Paul
you're
speak.
speaking, I hear you. But when Paul is speaking and I speak, or Paul tries to speak over me, let's say, I can't hear him.
Yeah, I thought just Paul was moving back while
No,
you were
I
speaking
don't think
and he
so.
was still speaking.
Paul, would you unmute yourself and speak? No, you're still muted.
So shall we sing a song together?
Okay, but if I talk now,
And I speak at the same
carry
time.
on talking, please. Carry on
Wait.
talking. No, you see, when I'm talking.
What
No,
did you say?
exactly. When I'm talking, we can't hear you at all.
You're right, Mara, you can. Paul, if I speak, can we hear? Let you speak and I'll speak over you, Paul, and we'll see can Mara hear both of us.
Well, it's trying
Chat away, Paul. Yeah, it looks like when the other person comes in, we mute Paul.
It's
Yeah.
gone.
It's something to do. It's got to be something at your end, Paul. Like you've got, what's it? No, don't know.
Something turned on to
Well,
turn.
I can't think of what it would be because that doesn't happen. I've never had this with anybody else. When
Would
anybody
it
else
not
is
be mute while others speak or anything? No.
no. There isn't such an option
Well,
anywhere.
there is something there where you can. There is something, Mara, that you can turn on ambient sound. You can turn it down.
Well, at Paul's level, it's got to be something I think that Paul is doing or Paul's computer is doing to him
Yeah.
because
Can you keep quiet for a minute?
Yes, we'll keep quiet.
Oh, I'm testing my microphone here. I'm testing it, so that's all fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
my
it's
sound
something to do with your microphone.
Well, it's
Are you using an external microphone or the computers?
no. Okay. Well, has it
Well-
caused a problem with the
Well,
recording?
actually, it saves me a lot of angst because when you try and talk over me or I try and talk over you, and we do this a lot because it's Zoom. I have to cut big sections, big chunks out because talking over people doesn't work, as we know.
Actually, to be a good thing, you could report that to Zoom. That's a very good idea because sometimes I come in when I shouldn't come in.
Oh, there's not, Zoom can't do anything about that, Ted. That is due to the fact that there is a delay between when I say something and when you hear it. It may only be a very, half a second or a quarter of a second or less, but it's difficult then to make sure that only one person is talking. Yeah? That's just one of the...
Are you off-site today, Paul?
Off-site meaning?
Are you in a different location than you normally are?
No,
No, this happens every week, Ted. It's not just today.
Oh, yeah, I know that. Yeah. No, your background seems to be different, Paul, than it normally is.
Oh, that's because I moved sideways to get out of the sun.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we're ready
to get into the sun.
For the final part. At least we were ready before I...
Go ahead, Sommer.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Just got to find my notes, that's all. And we're on the right screen. Okay, so Paul, you're going to bring us in?
Certainly.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome, listeners. Welcome to the Talk Show for Talkers, coming to you from Cork, Ireland. And today we're going to talk about, or listen to, Moira O'Brien talking about language. Now, using language to talk about language is a fascinating thing to do. And Moira is going to take us through, is it the beauty of language, Moira, or the necessity for language?
Well, obviously, it's important to have language in order to be able to communicate. But what I want to talk about today is the importance of language in making our speeches great and avoiding some of the common pitfalls that we have in our use of language. And this is what I'm going to try to demonstrate to you today. Well, maybe not too much demonstration, but at least to go over the issues. Ask any professional speech writer or speaker, and they'll tell you that language does matter. In fact, some of the most important and memorable lines in history come from speeches given by presidents and politicians. And here's a few of American presidents which you may recognize. In fact, I think you'll know them all. Here's the first one. It's true that you may fool all the people some of the time. You can even fool some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And that came from Abraham Lincoln. Theodore Roosevelt said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." Franklin D. Roosevelt said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." John F. Kennedy, probably one of the most famous ones. "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." And then the last one, Barack Obama. "We lose ourselves when we compromise the very ideals that we fight to defend. And we honor those ideals by upholding them when it is not easy, but when it is hard." And there's a few rhetorical devices used there, but we're not going to talk too much about rhetorical devices. What we're going to talk about is the word language and what we mean by language and what we're referring to. And we're referring to the words that you choose to use in your speech. Now, the first thing I put here on my notes is the distinction between written language and oral language. And I'm going to give you a little example here. I was going to say of the incomprehensible impossibility of written language. And it comes, of course, from James Joyce, that very famous line, ineluctable modality of the visible, at least that if no more thought through my eyes. Now, if you were to come out in a speech with language like that, you would lose your audience in less than 5 seconds. That is an example of written language as opposed to oral language. And let's look at the differences between written and oral. Oral language has a smaller variety of words. We don't tend to use flowery language. We use words with fewer syllables. We have more self-reference words like I and me and mine and yours. And oral language has fewer quantifying terms or precise numerical terms, despite what I was saying earlier, Ted. And oral language has more pseudo-quantifying terms. Now, what that means is many, few, some. You know, they're more woolly. They're not precise and specific. And it has more extreme superlative words like none, all, every, always, never. We have more qualifying statements, clauses beginning with unless and except and until. And oral language has much more repetition of words and syllables. We use more contractions like don't and won't and isn't. And we use more interjections like, wow, really? Not. You're kidding. And we use more colloquial and non-standard words, but we have to be a little bit careful with that. But that's a generality of the type of words that we use when speaking as against the words that we use when writing. Now, one of the really important things about use of words is rhythm. And anybody who's into music will understand this instinctively. When we listen to a great speaker, we can hear the rhythm of their words. We can use gesture, we can use force, we can use directness, we can use pitch and tone and inflection in the voice. And all of these will add to or subtract from, depending on how we do it, the rhythm of how we say it. Now, speech contains non-verbal elements as well as the words that we use. But the way we use our voice, the quality we use, the rate that we speak, the pitch, the volume and the speaking style, as well as the rhythm and the intonation and the stress, all these things go to make up how we use the language. Rhythm, I think, is the most important. It makes a speech vivid. And it's the not just the choice of the words that we use, but the arrangement of those words that evokes something in our audience of pleasure. You know, we can get pleasure just by listening to a beautiful language. We may say, for example, I love listening to Italian because Italian is a very musical language. And because I have a musical brain, it resonates with me. I don't understand. I understand very little of it, but I can appreciate the sound. So that's largely from the rhythm that it produces. And poets, of course, will always be aware of this because they're always looking for the rhythm in the language that they use. So let's now look at a little bit at choice of words. The language that you use has to be appropriate for both you as the speaker and for the audience. Now, for you as a speaker, that's a little bit easier, let's say, because you want to use language that you're comfortable with, that sounds like you, not sounds like Barack Obama or Winston Churchill or somebody else. You want to be you. Language for your audience is a bit more difficult because it needs to be appropriate for the level of understanding of your audience, the type of audience that you are talking to, who they are, what they know, what they're likely to know. So you need to be using language accurately and using it specifically, because each word can have shades of meaning. And you want that shade of meaning to be distinguishable from every other word which has, a similar sort of meaning. What makes perfect sense to one person can be confusing to others. And you should never assume that what is perfectly clear to that person is also clear to the audience. Remember, the audience doesn't have the ability to say, "Can you stop there, Moira, whilst I look up the word ineluctable in a dictionary so that I can understand it before you carry on?" You can't do that. You're carrying on speaking. If the audience doesn't understand that word, you've lost the audience there. So the speaker's meaning has to be immediately comprehensible. It must be so clear that there's no chance of misunderstanding. And one can ensure this by using familiar words, choosing concrete words over abstract words, and by eliminating verbal clutter, which, of course, as we know, is what I call verbal silence, verbal pauses. So how do we do this? Well, we don't use big, bloated words. We use short words, short, sharp, small syllable words, because they are much more easily understood. And this is especially true when we start talking about technical things, technical language. Unless you are speaking to a crowd of scientists, you would not use words like newtons and neurons and the Higgs boson particle, because that's going to go over most people's head. They may have heard, well, okay, I've heard that word, but I have no idea what it means. And remember, they don't have the opportunity of going to a dictionary. So other than being accurate and clear, a speaker must always choose words that are relevant to the audience, and also to choose concrete words. Concrete words refer to tangible objects that people, such as people and places and things. And they differ from abstract words because abstract words refer to general concepts. Now, it doesn't mean to say you can't use abstract words if you're talking about an abstract concept, but it's much better to try to use concrete words that describe the abstract concept, if you can get my meaning. I know it's a little bit contorted, but it does help for the understanding of the audience. Well, that does bring me back to just a few other things. We talked about the rhetorical devices. Yes, they're good, but they're outside the scope of this particular talk. But we can use similes, which are good, but be careful not to use cliche, because many similes really come from cliche. But you can use metaphors, and metaphors are quite useful for bringing something to life, making an abstract idea more concrete, and to be able to clarify and to express feelings and emotions. Well, that's it for now. I know that was a lot of information there. Maybe go back and listen to it again, because there is some good meat in that. What
Moira,
do you think so, Ted?
Moira,
Yes.
Miraculous, mysterious,
Yeah.
magical.
Lovely. There's a triad and an alliteration. So it's an alliterative triad. Paul, do you have any final words?
Only that the beauty of your language, we're talking about language, left me stunned.
Well, that's very kind of you, Paul. I have, of course, done some research in order to produce this talk, and I will include links at least to one of the sources that I used, which I found particularly useful, where there's a lot more information than anything that I've covered today. And that was a site called ukessays.com, which is an interesting one. But that, I think, brings us then to the end of this week's offerings. I hope that you've enjoyed it and you'll come back and join us again next week when we'll have another 4 segments of interest to Toastmasters, to speakers, to anybody in the world who wants
Thanks
to
to Dennis
communicate.
McCarthy for being our guest today.
And from Ted Melanfi, from Paul Omani, and from myself, Moira O'Brien, we'll see you again next week. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Cheerio.
And it's 16:16,
Excellent.
and 16:30 has not yet arrived.
Brilliant. That was a nice piece, Moira.
Good. I as usual, I mean, I started this piece at about 1:15. And, you know, I meant to say this actually in the show, but what
And you
made
didn't finish until 4:15. That's 3 hours.
what made me think of doing this segment was a discussion that I had with my lodger about words, and he loves to distort words, and I, being a wordsmith of sorts, I don't like distortion. You know, I like to get things right. And it occurred to me then that that might be a good thing to start off. So I just Googled the importance of words, the importance of language. Sorry. And I have to confess that a lot of the words I've used were, they came from my research, but a lot of it was mine as well.
Lovely. Well, Moira, you have a huge listenership. You're the you have the biggest amount of attention every episode.
I appreciate this, and I'm glad, obviously, though I would wish that the other segments would get bigger listenership, of course. But it's good to know that people do.
You're doing your best to coach Ted and myself.
Yes, indeed.
I didn't think I was coachable, Paul.
No. Well, one day, Ted, when I have a bit more time and I do the editing, I will
I have to wait for another 75 years, so Mara.
Yeah, I will string together all the bits that I cut out of our individual segments, including myself, because I'm by no means innocent in these matters.
Yeah, well done.
And string them together.
In relation to coaching, for just 1 second, have either of you ever been a club coach?
No,
Yes.
I haven't.
No, I haven't actually, thinking about it. No, no.
Yeah.
Anyway, should we say goodbye to YouTube, and we'll see YouTube again next week.
Oh, yes.
Bye.
So bye-bye, YouTube.
Bye, YouTube.
Bye-bye, Moira.
See you.